Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Ever wonder what it truly takes for, a blockbuster to succeed in today's wild cinematic landscape, especially when a film just ignites this huge, passionate fan debate? Well, today we're plunging deep into exactly that. We're looking at the new Superman movie's recent box office performance and its really fiery fan reception, plus all the social media discussion that's just blown up around it. We've sifted through a stack of sources, pulling out the key stuff. We've got insights from Rebecca Rubin's box office battle, Superman F1 and Weapon Shine, Wesley Inpool's piece, Superman's box office flight, DC's New Frontier, and another called Superman's Box Office Struggle, a Snyderverse revival plea. And of course, we're drawing from those intense online conversations, looking at Superman film criticism and debate and Superman in the evolving film business. So, our mission today, let's unpack the numbers, explore those often really conflicting opinions, and try to understand what this all means for the future of superhero films and maybe even the wider entertainment industry. Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? The sheer intensity of the competition we're seeing right now. These aren't just movies anymore. They feel like cultural events.
Oh boy.
And their performance, well, it reveals so much about where audiences are at these days.
It really has been a battle royale at the box office this summer. Two films especially have been running almost neck and neck, both getting close to that $600 million global mark.
Right.
You've got the new Superman, obviously, and maybe a bit more surprisingly for some, F1.
Right.
And what's pretty impressive is that, neither of these felt like guaranteed smashes hitting theaters.
Yeah.
So their success is maybe even more noteworthy.
Absolutely. Superman, last check, stands at about $595 million globally. That's after 6 weeks. And a big chunk of that, $340 million, is from North America.
Strong domestic showing there.
Yeah, very solid domestically. Just last weekend, it added another, $3.1 million overseas and $8.4 million worldwide. Now, it's probably unlikely to pass the 2013 Man of Steel, which hit $670 million, unadjusted for inflation, mind you. But still, this performance, it's widely seen as a positive step forward for DC Studios.
Especially after some recent struggles, yeah.
Exactly. Given their, let's say, search for commercial consistency lately, and they're already planning ahead. We know Supergirl and Clayface are slated for 2026, and James Gunn, who directed Superman and is co-running DC now, he's even announced a new Superfamily project is coming.
Right. And then there's F1, which has just shown incredible legs.
Incredible staying power.
It's sitting at $590 million globally after 8 weeks. And the international number is remarkable, like $407 million.
Yeah, that international performance shows especially impressive stamina overseas.
Just last weekend, it pulled in another $9.3 million internationally, $12 million worldwide. And this film, starring Brad Pitt, it was seen as a real gamble for Apple.
Oh, definitely.
That production budget was reportedly north of $250 million. And it's kind of a rare beast these days, right? An original adult-focused tentpole movie.
An endangered species, almost, in today's market.
Yeah. And it even became Brad Pitt's biggest movie ever, gross-wise, beating World War Z.
Which is quite something. It just highlights that there are different ways to find success in this current climate. It's not just one formula.
Definitely.
And beyond those two big ones, you've got Weapons nearing $150 million globally in just 10 days. Cost only $38 million, so that's another clear hit for Warner Bros.
Either to return.
On the other hand, Nobody 2 had a bit of a softer opening, $14.1 million globally. But again, the budget was only $25 million, so will likely still end up profitable.
Right. And just quickly, for anyone keeping score, Jurassic World Rebirth did massive numbers, like $828 million.
Yeah.
The Naked Gun reboot pulled in about $73 million. Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, landed near $600 million. And maybe worth a quick mention, the kind of troubling situation for Marvel's Fantastic Four, First Steps, which is sitting around $468 million.
Yeah.
So yeah, real mixed bag for the summer blockbusters.
Very mixed.
But let's circle back to Superman for a minute, because just looking at those big gross numbers, well, it might not be telling us the whole story, is it?
That's right. When we talk about Superman's box office, what do these numbers really mean when you start to, dig a bit deeper?
Yeah, this is where it gets really compelling, I think. Because while Superman is being called a success, especially here in the U.S., a closer look shows a much more, nuanced picture, particularly when you put it side by side with its predecessor.
That direct comparison, Superman 2025 versus Man of Steel 2013, it is quite revealing. You're right. Superman 2025 is the highest grossing Superman film ever in the U.S. It pulled in over $331 million. Some sources even say $337 million domestically. That definitely beats Man of Steel's $291 million domestic haul.
Okay, so domestically, it's the champ.
Domestically, yes, but the global picture tells a different tale.
Oh, okay, that's the crucial difference then.
Yeah. Man of Steel actually brought in a really hefty $379.1 million from international markets, which pushed its global total up to $670.1 million. And that figure, as we mentioned, the new Superman is unlikely to beat. It's currently around $594.5 million globally.
So it seems like the international audience maybe didn't quite embrace this new version as strongly.
That seems to be the case. And interestingly, James Gunn himself, the director and co-CEO, he's kind of downplayed the box office pressure.
What did he say?
Well, there was this figure floating around online, like $700 million being the benchmark to avoid flock status. He called that complete and utter nonsense. He basically said it doesn't need to be as big of a situation as people are saying, which, offers a different perspective on how to judge its financial performance.
That's interesting. And then there was that kind of surprise announcement about the early digital release, right?
Yeah.
Just over a month after hitting theaters.
Yeah, that raised some eyebrows.
Gunn blamed it on the upcoming Peacemaker Season 2 needing to tie into the movie plot-wise, which is just a fascinating glimpse into how interconnected these cinematic universes are now. Everything affects everything else.
Yeah, it really does. And this whole discussion highlights that just looking at the gross revenue, the big dollar number, well, it can be misleading.
How so?
Well, unadjusted box office figures, they don't account for things like inflation or just how dramatically the market itself has shifted over the last decade plus. So it raises a really important question. What's the purest metric here? How do we really understand the audience reach?
You've absolutely hit on a key point there. Beyond the raw dollars, what really counts is how many people actually bought a ticket, how many seats were filled.
Full bums on seats, as they say.
Exactly. And that's where the new Superman story gets, well, more complex.
Yeah.
If you start factoring in inflation, the numbers look quite different. Like cinema today is worth almost twice as much, financially speaking, as when Man of Steel came out.
Yeah.
And average ticket prices have gone up significantly. I think maybe $8.50 back in 2013 versus closer to $12.50 now in 2025.
Precisely. And when you adjust for that difference in ticket price, well, Man of Steel sold roughly 34.2 million tickets in North America, whereas Superman 2025, with its $337 million domestic gross, that translates to about 27 million tickets sold domestically.
So that's quite a drop. What is that, like 21% fewer?
Around 21% fewer audience members actually walking through the doors in the U.S., yeah. And globally, the estimates suggest the new Superman sold somewhere between 50 and 60 million tickets, which is a significant drop, maybe 25 to 40% fewer tickets sold globally compared to Man of Steel.
Wow, okay. So even with a higher domestic gross, the new film filled significantly fewer seats overall.
Correct.
And that overall decline in actual attendance, it really reflects these broader trends we keep seeing, doesn't it? Like fewer people going to theaters generally post-COVID and just massive competition from all the streaming options at home.
Absolutely. It's a tougher market out there for theatrical releases.
So how does all this connect back to how the film was actually received?
Yeah.
By the audiences, by the critics? Because the dollars and the ticket numbers are one thing, but how people felt about the movie seems to be a whole other story.
Hey, definitely.
The online discussions around Superman have been incredibly passionate and often extremely polarized.
That's putting it mildly. Yeah. We've seen some very strong criticisms fly around on social media. One user just bluntly put it, #Superman sucks, both as a Superman movie, as a Superman story, as a story, and as a corporate slop that it was always meant to be.
Ouch. That's harsh.
Pretty brutal. They even said, watching concrete dry is a more useful way to pass a couple hours, and complained that the amount of exposition this movie has should make anyone lower at least 1 star. Another user felt it was, quote, an insult to both the comic and movie mediums.
Wow, okay. That's quite the condemnation.
Right.
And then I saw that comment comparing it unfavorably to, was it the Justice League?
Yeah, referencing the theatrical cut of Justice League that Joss Whedon heavily re-edited. Someone remarked, at least Justice League had some semblance of artistry in Snyder's scenes, specifically mentioning the Minecraft Pocket Universe scene in the new film.
Right, so it paints this picture of a really deep dissatisfaction from, well, at least some corners of the fandom.
But then, on the flip side, you have equally enthusiastic praise.
Okay, let's hear the positive side.
One user declared, it was the most fun I've had watching a Superman movie since I was a kid watching Christopher Reeve. which is high praise indeed.
That's huge praise, yeah.
Others chimed in with things like, I think it's fine Superman feels like the animated series, suggesting it captured a certain beloved tone. And another said, the movie was super fun. We loved the characters, the story, and that it was a kid's movie that they enjoyed, so worth the money.
It's incredible, isn't it, how one single film can generate such wildly different reactions.
It really is stark.
It just highlights the, I guess, the varied expectations and preferences within the audience base now. There's clearly a major divide.
A huge divide.
And it even sparked this interesting online debate about whether it's valid to, quote, spend hours being upset about a movie, versus the argument that people have a right to express criticism when what you've watched isn't merely not to my liking, but something closer to an insult.
Right. It goes beyond just like or dislike.
Yeah, it touches on perceived quality, fidelity of the source material, all that stuff.
And that's a crucial point, because this division leads us directly into thinking about how the film business itself is shifting. 2025 saw multiple big blockbusters hitting screens close together.
Right, crowded marketplace.
Which inevitably dilutes the audience for any single film, Superman included. Everyone's fighting for the same eyeballs, the same weekend spend.
And let's not forget the big one. Streaming.
Exactly. Streaming is now just established. It's in almost every home. And that fundamentally changes the game for movie revenue, for how audiences even consume films.
People know it'll be on their TV soon enough.
Precisely. Which can definitely impact their decision to go see it in a theater, especially if they're on the fence.
And within that whole shifting landscape, a really key factor in Superman's performance seems to be this very vocal, very strong division among the fan bases.
That seems undeniable.
The sources we looked at point specifically to fans who are loyal to director Zack Snyder's previous DC universe, the ones often called Snyder fans.
Oh. Uh-huh.
And the argument is that they either boycotted or critiqued Gunn's lighter tone. And also that Gunn focusing the marketing on it being a reboot might have actively, quote, alienated legacy fans.
And this is where it gets particularly compelling, I think, because this perceived shortfall for Superman, whether fair or not, it seems to have reignited these long-standing fan campaigns.
Oh, yeah, those campaigns, they've been around for years, simmering away, but now they seem to be getting real viral momentum online again.
It's definitely seeing a resurgence.
We're seeing the Restore the Snyderverse hashtags everywhere, even Fire James Gunn trending sometimes. And it's all directly linked to fans demanding Warner Bros. Finish Zack Snyder's original 5-movie arc for the DC Universe.
Right.
They argue Gunn's reboot just ignores that legacy, and they're pointing to Superman's underperformance, specifically the lower ticket sales compared to Man of Steel, as evidence that their preferred vision still has a strong, maybe underserved audience.
And it's not entirely dismissed as just fan chatter. Zack Snyder himself has said he'd be interested in continuing his vision if, say, a platform like Netflix picked up the rights. And there were even reports suggesting Warner Bros. CEO David Zaslav might be, quote, open to the idea, especially if Superman didn't quite hit certain internal expectations.
So it suggests maybe some corporate flexibility.
Yeah.
Like, they might respond if the fan demand is loud enough and makes economic sense.
Potentially, yes. It shows they're at least aware of this very passionate segment of the audience.
So if we just take a step back,
yeah,
why is this idea of restoring the Snyderverse not completely, off the table?
Yeah.
It seems like this multiverse idea is the key, isn't it?
The multiverse concept is absolutely critical here. It's become a common trope in superhero storytelling now, and it provides a narrative framework. It basically allows for parallel stories. You could theoretically have Snyder's darker, more complex Earth existing alongside Gunn's newer, maybe brighter universe. They wouldn't have to cancel each other out.
Okay, so narratively, it's feasible. What about the business side?
Well, economically, the argument from proponents is that bringing back the Snyderverse in some form could potentially recapture 20–30% of the lost audience, those fans who felt alienated by the reboot. And doing so could actually boost future films in Gunn's universe, too, maybe through crossover events. Plus, streaming platforms like Max could specifically host Snyder content, directly monetizing that nostalgia.
Right. Capitalize on that existing fan base.
Exactly. And that demographic, often described as male, 25–45, self-identified comic loyalists, represents a significant segment that some reports suggest felt pushed away by the reboot direction. So, restoring elements of the Snyderverse, even just through cameos or Elseworld-style stories, could potentially increase turnout by 15–20%, according to some of the fan surveys and analyses we saw.
And maybe it could even be framed as a unifying strategy. Like the idea that by integrating the Snyderverse via these multiverse crossovers, Gunn wouldn't be seen as replacing Snyder, but rather as acknowledging and incorporating that legacy.
That's the potential upside, yes. It could allow fans to appreciate Gunn's different tone, his humor perhaps, while still getting that sense of depth or continuity they enjoyed in Snyder's vision.
And we have seen this kind of nostalgia play work spectacularly before, haven't we?
Oh, absolutely. Spider-Man: No Way Home is the prime example.
Right. It leveraged that multiversal nostalgia, bringing back previous iterations, and drove billions in revenue. It proved nostalgia is incredibly powerful.
Well, it really did. So it creates a potential path, at least theoretically, for DC to bridge some of these divides and maximize its audience by catering to different tastes under one big, multifaceted umbrella.
Wow. What an insightful deep dive that was. We've really unpacked a lot today, haven't we?
We certainly have.
We started with those headline box office numbers, saw how Superman did against tough competition like F1. We noted its pretty impressive domestic performance, but also its struggle globally compared to Man of Steel. Then we peeled back the layers, realizing that those unadjusted gross figures can be a bit misleading.
All right, the ticket sales tell a different story.
Exactly. Ticket sales, especially when you adjust for inflation, give a much clearer picture of actual audience reach. And they show the new Superman, despite the higher domestic gross, actually filled significantly fewer seats worldwide.
And beyond just the numbers, we got into the real heart of the debate, the incredibly polarized fan and critical reception.
Yeah, from outright condemnation, really harsh stuff, to incredibly enthusiastic praise. The film clearly split the audience right down the middle.
And that division, seemingly fueled by loyalties to different creative visions, different directors, has become a major factor in the whole conversation around the film's impact.
Leading directly to those renewed, passionate calls online for the restoration of the Snyderverse.
And we explored how the shifting film business landscape, market saturation, the dominance of streaming, provides the backdrop for all this.
But maybe the most intriguing nugget to come out of this is the real potential, or at least the serious discussion, around the Snyderverse's return. It's not just fan wishful thinking anymore.
It's being discussed as a strategically feasible option, using that multiverse concept.
Right, with potential economic upsides, and even as a way to maybe unite these deeply divided fan groups under a broader DC umbrella, kind of like we saw with Spider-Man: No Way Home, embracing its own complex history.
Exactly. It's a complex puzzle for the studio to solve.
So here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to maybe mull over. In this era of intense franchise filmmaking, digital disruption, and incredibly vocal online fandoms, what is this whole Superman situation, the box office story, the passionate Snyderverse debate? What does it really tell us about the ultimate power of fan loyalty? And maybe about that delicate, difficult balance between a creator's vision and what the audience demands. What kind of future models might we see studios try out as they desperately attempt to satisfy all these different fan segments while still, turning a profit? Something for you to consider as you think about where cinema might be heading. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. If you found this discussion illuminating, please do like this episode, subscribe to the deep dive for more insights like this, and maybe share it with a friend who loves getting into these kinds of debates. Thanks for listening.